And we get it rolling on the Krueg Show Wednesday night, June the 21st, 7:23 on the West Coast, 10:23 on the East Coast. Hope everybody's having a great day. I got Giants baseball over my right shoulder, Giants and Padres going. Coming on after that later on tonight with Ned Coletti. Should be a lot of fun. But we are talking Niners on the Pig and a Pickle Krueg Show, brought to you by Pig and a Pickle. Best barbecue in Northern California. Check them out. Emeryville and Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week in Marin, Wednesday through Sunday in Emeryville. Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Well, Jesse Naylor's in the house. Jesse, man, good to see you. Getting ready for a vacation. The day before a vacation always feels like a busy day, but a great day too. How you doing?
Oh, yeah, I'm doing fantastic. And yes, I'm on cloud nine, getting ready to go to Costa Rica. I'm very excited about it. We were talking about it backstage a little bit, but also excited because I don't know if this is the first show with this new sponsor, but I'm going to act like it is because you've got a new sponsor and yes. I feel special. I'm just going to say that.
Thank you. New sponsor, Marin Auto Glass, across the bottom of the screen there, marinautoglass.com, 415-883-3030. We're giving them the scroll treatment throughout the show for the first week or so. And you know, you're driving down a freeway, all of a sudden, you're behind a truck and a pebble or something pops off the truck and hits the ground, pops up, hits the windshield. You get to wherever you're going, and then you notice, oh, wait a second. What do I got there? Is that a little hairline crack in my windshield? Damn. And then you say, nah, probably nothing, and you let it go, and then a hairline becomes, suddenly it's bigger, then it's all the way across your windshield, and it's a pain in the butt. But at Marin Auto Glass, you go call Marin Auto Glass or check them out at marinautoglass.com, and they come to wherever you're at. You're at work. You got your car in the lot. They come to you just tell them the make and model and year. They find the right windshield. They come out while you're working or maybe in your driveway at your home, pop out the old one, glaze in the new one, take out all the glass. And it's very, very convenient. So my good friend Saeed, who runs Marin Auto Glass, I contacted him and said, hey, Saeed, used to do your spots on the radio, man. I would love to have you as part of my YouTube family. And he's like, I didn't even have to, it wasn't like, hey, let me think about it. It's like, I'm in. I literally sold the sponsorship through a text on 680 coming back from Niner camp. And he's like, I'm in. And before I could even get home, he was like Venmoing me his money. I'm like, Saeed, you're the man. So I love Saeed. I love Marin Auto Glass. And it's a great company. And they've helped me out. They've probably changed out 3 windshields for me in the past. And, it's just one of those expenses in life that you're not banking on, you're not budgeting for, and you want it done seamlessly. And you don't want to have to drive out to Timbuktu to get it done, and they're just so convenient. So thank you to Saeed. Thank you to Marin Auto Glass. Please utilize Marin Auto Glass if indeed you have a cracked windshield. And in the Bay Area, I'll tell you, one time I'm doing a Sunday night ESPN show with the great John Lund, and we got the car parked on Broadway Street, and I'm looking out the window, and I'm like, is that what I think I'm seeing right now? There's a guy who's pointing a gun at my car, and I'm like, is that what I think I'm seeing? And I'm looking there, and next thing I know, he's shooting the gun, and he fired a round of bullets through my windshield, thought he would, rob stuff out of the car. Didn't. I come out after the show. John and I walk up to the car. I'm like, I thought that was what I was seeing. And sure enough, I got bullets in my front seat. I got glass everywhere. The windshield is shot up. San Francisco at night, Jesse, I'm telling you.
Unbelievable. John, hold on. You mentioned John Lund. John Lund came from the Portland market, did he not?
Yes.
Okay. I used to listen to him. I remember on 1080 The Fan, or I think is where he came from, 1080 The Fan, if I'm not mistaken, in Portland. Used to love John Lund.
Oh, he's a great guy. I coached his kid in Little League, and we've been lifelong friends. And great guy now working at KMBR with the great Greg Papa, who you know very well, the voice of the 49ers. And that's what we're going to talk about today is the Niners. I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden my son comes in, and he's like, Dad, Adam Schefter's on with McAfee and Hawk on the McAfee show, and he's talking Niner quarterbacks. And I'm like, oh, really? So we, popped it on. And sure enough, It was Pac-Man Jones who kind of asked him, "Hey, what's up? What's going on with Trey Lance? What's your read on the Niner thing?" And they kind of revisited it, and several of the answers, I guess, could be categorized as nothing new, Jesse, but I don't know. It sounded a little different to me. I don't know. You and Grant maybe touched on this, but the line that caught me was there's no trade market at all for Trey Lance. And that to me is surprising. I mean, I realize he's making a little bit more money because he was the third pick in the draft. I realize that he hasn't hit this, taken the league by storm, right? But he's hardly been some train wreck. He's super great guy, super athletic. Not that the Niners need to trade him, period, but no trade market at all for Trey Lance. Does that surprise you at all? Did you guys talk about this today at all?
We didn't. We had topics lined up, and then we both kind of caught that last minute. We briefly touched on it, but not a whole bunch. The Schefter, just as a whole, the Schefter interview seemed to me like it was a lot of speculation. He didn't have a whole lot of answers. Not different than what we said, but you're right. That is the one thing that was different. However, it was hard for me to tell what he meant, because right after he said, well, they traded a lot to get him. They're not going to get anything close to that. And so kind of what the value is and around the league, it's just there's not a market for him. So do you mean there's not a market for him based off of what they would want, or there just was nobody willing to trade for him? I feel like those are two different things. And so if the 49ers have an asking price out there, like Jimmy Garoppolo was a good example of this. Last year, there was no market for Jimmy because of the injury. But also, if the 49ers were asking for 2 second-round picks, which was rumored to be the case, of course there was no market for Jimmy Garoppolo under those pretenses. But if it's like, hey, we'll give you a 5th, then all of a sudden there's a market for Jimmy Garoppolo. So that's kind of the way that I took away that conversation with Shefty, because he did throw in compensation immediately after, and that the 49ers, hey, they would want something for him because they got to close the gap somehow. They gave up a lot for him. That's how I took that conversation. How did you read it?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it just seems like I talk to so many people that are pro Trey Lance that every time I hear people that are not kind of in my echo chamber, it sounds very anti-Lance. I had Guy Haberman and John Middlecoff on yesterday, and
it's the same way when you talk about Purdy. If everything's not positive, it's like you're anti whoever. So, but go ahead.
Yeah, I just feel like I really like Trey Lance in the draft, and to me, when I did the deep dive on the Hall of Fame quarterbacks, and I realized that basically almost every Hall of Fame quarterback that's ever made it to the Hall in the NFL started slowly. Suddenly, Trey's 2-2 record, 5 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and somewhat slow development doesn't look nearly as like, wow, what the heck's wrong here? That to me looks kind of like par for the course. So I don't look at, and I'm even the guy that I don't really look at Sam Darnold as a failure. I look at a 25-year-old guy who's been on some bad teams. I don't look at Trey Lance as a failure. I look at a guy who played very little college football and has some bugs to work out mechanically. I don't look at these guys as failures. I kind of look at them as viable quarterback candidates. Now, I'm more skeptical about Darnold because I didn't like him coming out of USC. I felt like he had, turnover issues. Trey was a much more of a speculative prospect because he didn't play a lot. And the level that he played at, he did things that he just can't do in the NFL. Some of those highlights from North Dakota State where he's running left and here comes a defender and he's stiff arm into the turf and I'm running by you. I mean, that's something that you see like the gigantic kid and Pop Warner do to the tinier little kids.
Or Josh Allen. Like yeah. Josh Allen does those things still somehow, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like when you're on a different level than your competitors. Yeah. So I don't look at I do think Purdy's the best they've got, but I'm more I'll say this, Jesse. I'm more pro Purdy and what he's done than I am anti-Lance or anti-Darnold in what they haven't done. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. I think that's totally, again, you're always going to be painted in a box. And so the 49ers have put fans and content creators, I mean, we're fans, right? You're a fan. I'm a fan. We're very open about that. And so as a fan, the 49ers have put fans in a box where they've got to, for the most part, you got to choose. And some people will say, oh, I'm fine with either quarterback, which I think is true. If as long as the 49ers are winning, we're ultimately fine with any of the quarterbacks. But until the games are played, it doesn't mean we don't have a preference. And so on this platform, we're going to speak that preference. And if you speak that preference and it's different than what other people think, then all of a sudden you're a hater of the other guy. And I just think that couldn't be further from the truth. It just means that you prefer one over the other, but it doesn't mean you dislike the other one. I think both are totally okay.
And I don't think that I wouldn't want to give up on Trey, but that was the takeaway today. I thought it sounds like Schefter is talking to people who don't believe in Trey Lance. And it sounds like the league doesn't believe in Trey Lance, because it sounds like there's a bunch of teams out there that wouldn't have interest in trading for him. But you're right. We don't know. Maybe the 49ers wanted a 1, a 3, and a player. And the price tag, it's all relative to your ask, right?
For sure.
So that was one of it. That was one of the points. The other thing
you're having a garage sale, okay, and you've got, I don't know, whatever, a flower pot that you've listed at $7, and all day Friday nobody wants it, all day Saturday nobody wants it, and then all of a sudden for the last hour you put it down to $1, and now you got 3 people surrounding it. So did nobody want the flower pot, or they just didn't want it at $7, right? Like, that's the way that I look at this. It all comes down to the asking price as far as what somebody's value is and what they're worth.
And it also speaks to nobody really has a conviction on a player that hasn't played a lot. I mean, if they did, if this kid had lit it up at Michigan or lit it up for Notre Dame or something, then I think there would be somebody in the league, regardless of how it went so far, that would have a conviction. But because he barely played, and he played at North Dakota State at the FCS level, and that team that he was on was the equivalent of like the best year of Alabama football. I mean, I would say North Dakota State's more dominant on their level than Bama is on their level. So maybe teams just looked at him and said, you know what? He's on a powerhouse team. He played 1 year of ball after high school, and we can't evaluate him, and we don't have that conviction. I'm kind of wondering this. I thought the Niners should have gone with Aaron Rodgers first in the 1995 draft, and they didn't. And I was convinced that Aaron Rodgers would go 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I thought he'd go pretty quickly. He went like 23, right, or 24. So a team
that had a Hall of Fame quarterback already in place,
right? And then they sat for 3 years or 4 years. So my question, I guess, would be, if the Niners had not drafted Trey Lance, would anybody have drafted him in the first round? Was he going 1 pick later? Was he not going in the middle? I mean, I kind of wonder about that now. I mean, I kind of wonder. We're never going to get the answer. Nobody is on record as saying, you know what? If he had been there, we would have taken him. I thought I'd read reports that Indy had a real high grade on him. Maybe Atlanta and a couple other organizations.
Yeah. Panthers, I heard as well.
But I mean, how far would he have fallen? Where would he have gone if he hadn't gone top 3 to the 49ers? I don't know. I really don't know. So I'll say this. My feeling on Trey Lance is the only reason I never wanted him traded. I just predicted he would be traded because there was so much smoke. But even myself, and I said it at the time, if he's traded for nothing, I'm going to be highly critical of that. If he's traded for something great, like a late first or an early second round pick, and you could turn it into Michael Mayer or something great that you could help you win a Super Bowl, I'm okay with that. And I still feel the same way to this minute. If the 49ers move him, I don't care what happens in this competition this summer. I really don't. If Brock Purdy's the starter and Trey Lance is the backup, and the 49ers trade Trey Lance and they trade him for something that's a future third or something, I'm going to be pissed, because to me, the only way I would trade Trey Lance before the draft or on the draft day or even today is if you get something that helps you win the Super Bowl this year. Otherwise, I'm really not interested in even having the discussion. And I don't even care about his quarterback salary and where it sits, because Purdy's making beans, and your quarterback room as a whole is one of the cheapest, if not the cheapest, in the whole league. So I don't want to move Trey Lance unless you get something significant for him. That being said, if Purdy is your guy, and Trey Lance is not your guy, I'm okay with moving him, but I need something that's going to help the 49ers win the Super Bowl this year. Otherwise, I would rather just use him as an insurance policy, because if Purdy goes down, and history tells us these quarterbacks are going down, I want Trey Lance as one of my options. How do you feel?
Yeah, I'm 100% on board with that. In fact, I've had a couple shows over the last few weeks that have said basically the same thing. You don't get rid of him just to get rid of him. But if the 49ers truly believe that Purdy is their guy, whether I agree, you agree, none of that matters. If they believe Purdy is that guy, then you do move on from the backup quarterback, especially if you have a guy there like Sam Darnold that they supposedly believe in as well. If you can get anything decent for him, maybe it's him for Chase Young, or him and a fourth for Danielle Hunter, or something like that. I think you got to at least kick the tires on it. I mean, if he's not going to get any burn unless somebody gets injured anyways, and if that somebody gets injured and you like Sam Darnold, then I say you go get somebody that might be able to start opposite of Bosa, if that's available to you. Yes, I agree with that.
John B says, Adam said, this is my guess, and somehow Larry turns that into league sources. Okay, a couple things on Schefter. He has sources.
This is the hard part with these guys, man. It's the same thing we ran into with Rappaport, by the way. These guys give their opinions, and they weave in and out of their opinions, mixed in with sources. We make assumptions, which may or may not be right, and it's really hard. That's why I just wish these guys would separate. Tell me when you're going to opine, and tell me when you have the sources. Can you at least separate it for me so that I know what to fully believe in and what not? That's the hard part for me.
It is, because they also get people who tell them things off the record, and to try to the same way that they get spun, right? They get spun, and it's like, hey, this is what I'll tell you for the record, and this is how we feel. And so that they get better coverage, or they give better coverage, teams spin them and give them little glimpses of their thinking through their commentary. And sometimes it's a text, but sometimes there's actual dialogue. So when Schefter comes out and says, this is my guess, people say, well, how do you know league sources? Well, this guy is plugged in, and the last thing that any of these guys want to do is be wrong. So if you say you have a source, then people immediately go to, well, who's telling you this? If you say, you know what, this is my sense of it, you could know. I mean, they're not. Let's just say this: Adam Schefter's not trying to say falsehoods, because he doesn't care about the 49ers. He doesn't really care about Trey Lance. He doesn't care about Brock Purdy. He doesn't care what any of you really think. He cares about what John Lynch thinks. He cares about what Kyle Shanahan thinks. He cares about what his sources have told him, and he cares about what they've told him on the record and off the record. So when he says, this is my guess, I would say you may want to go with their guesses as a little bit more sourced, because they're at least talking to somebody, and we are talking to nobody. And that's the one difference. And they're not invested. Like, I guarantee you, Ian Rappaport and Adam Schefter don't give a shit who starts at quarterback for the 49ers. They don't care. They're not fans. They're not vested. They have no vested interest. They're not anti-Trey. They're not pro-Brock. They're not anti-Darnold. They're not pro-Brandon Allen, right? They're just guys. So, but they want to be right. and they get paid based on how often they're right. So some things, if they get it like sourced, they're going to come strong with it like a report. But then when they go do Q&As on shows like McAfee and they get asked questions, now they're giving their sense of it. And their sense of it, I think, also has to be, there's some their credibility is on the line as well, but it's not a report. So there's more latitude. But I still think at the end of the day that it behooves Rappaport and Schefter to be right and accurate, even when they're giving their opinions, not just reporting. Would you agree with that?
Yeah,
I'm not saying
think,
that, I don't see any motivation for them to do any misdirection unless they're being spun by teams that want misdirection. So then you're talking about something totally different. If the 49ers don't want the public to think how, if they don't want the public to think that they're anti-Trey Lance, then maybe they would spin something. Or if they don't want the public to think they're anti-Sam Darnold, maybe they would spin something. But that's high level, multi-level stuff. And it's like, I got to take these guys somewhat at their word. I'm not saying it's a report, but when Schefter comes out today and says that Brock Purdy, if he's healthy, is the number one quarterback, well, that we already kind of knew. But to me, the news of the day is that Sam Darnold has the edge on the number 2 job. I've been at all the practices. I think that Sam Darnold hasn't shown me anything that says that he should have the edge on Trey Lance. But that's his take. So where did that come from?
Yeah, I tend to agree that their opinion is usually going to be based off of things that they've heard. And whether it's right or wrong, they're obviously not reporting. They've heard something, so they're going to form their opinion based off that. I think that's real. The problem that I have, though, is that you've got two of the best reporters in the business, and Schefter and Ian Rappaport, who seem to completely disagree on the Trey Lance situation. Because Rappaport thought that Trey Lance was absolutely getting traded. And then he even doubled down and said, well, he's going to get traded before the season. Like, he came back after the draft and said that. So is what he's hearing different than what Schefter's hearing? Or is it strictly their opinions? Or is it maybe strictly Schefter's opinion and not Rappaport's, or vice versa? I don't know. That's what makes it really hard. So I do agree that these guys definitely hear things, and that their opinion is kind of a mixture of things that they hear plus their own spin on things. I just don't know where to draw the line. And especially when two guys that are high level in this business, this reporting business, seem to have different reads on the Trey Lance situation on whether he'll get traded or not. So
I get the sense that Schefter says that Darnold has the edge for the number 2 job, not because anybody's whispered to him, just because the 49ers signed him on the first day of free agency.
Yeah.
And he's kind of reading into that as they really like him. And if they really like him, they're going to go with him as number 2. But
I think a lot of people read into that way.
I think that might be wrong, though, Jesse, because I think the Niners have a much more, now maybe I'm wrong, but I think the Niners have a much more, I think they think that Brock is their one, and the rest of it is wide open. That's how I look at it. I don't think.
Also, who do they have a bigger investment in, Sam Darnold or Trey Lance? Let's just be real about the situation. So you have a bigger investment in Trey Lance. So if you're strictly going off the investment that was put in, then Trey Lance would be the number 2. But they're obviously making it a competition, which, okay, that's great. But to read into it that, oh, Sam Darnold was signed immediately, that means he's the number 2, I'd pump the brakes on that one.
Yeah, no, I would too. Mike Monahan says, enjoy your vacay, Jesse. Rum drinks in order.
Hey, thank you, Mike. And I saw Mike and Third String All Pro chatting in there earlier. We were having a good little back and forth on Grant and Sat Show in the chat. But no, Third String, I did not mute you. I would never do that over a disagreement. I promise. I didn't mute you. So, but it wasn't 35 yards. It was 27. Let's be clear.
Okay, now I got to beat up Ted talks too much ball. Ted, back away from the phone. Stop tweeting. I did some quick math on Ted's Twitter. Ted is tweeting about 68 times a day since he's been on Twitter. That is not an exaggeration. Do the math. It's all there for you. Ted, Adam Schefter does not care about clicks. All right? Come on. That is asinine. That is a crazy take. He gets paid to be right. He gets paid to give his opinions. He goes on the McAfee show. He's not saying this for clicks. That is just wild. That is crazy. And if he cared that much about clicks, there'd be so many other ways you could get clicks than this. I mean, you're talking about a guy who has more clicks than anybody cares to tell. I mean, the guy's got more clicks than everybody in the world. He's not making up stories and putting his credibility on the line for clicks. I saw that take on Twitter. I laughed at that. I'm laughing at this. All right. The other take is that the 49ers are optimistic that Purdy will be ready for the Steelers in Heinz Field on week 1. And then he was asked, hey, what, are we going to see Purdy in the preseason? And he said, there's a whole plan in place for Purdy. He'll clearly be monitored, or he'll be closely monitored, and everything he does all summer and how much he plays in the preseason at this point is unknown. I thought the Purdy stuff was all stuff that we could kind of assume, right? They've already kind of said, yeah, we've heard it. And there's nothing really new there. The only thing really new is that Sam Darnold has the edge on the number 2 job going into training camp. And that was just his opinion. It sounded like, not necessarily sourced, but it was based on the way the Niners went after Sam Darnold. And let's be honest, that's an opinion that has been shared by, forget just everybody. Shefty. There's lots of people that have looked at the timeline of the free agency and the pursuit of Darnold and said, hey, they really want Darnold here, and they signed him before free agency even began. And why would Darnold come here for an incentive-laden deal if he was really going to be the third-string quarterback? That question right there is no answer to, right? I mean, unless I'm not thinking about something. I mean, why would Sam Darnold come here if he was the third-string quarterback?
Yeah, I think that's a real thing. I think there's definitely some legs there. And, the only thing I could think of is maybe he wants to do the Trubisky thing, where it's like, all right, I'll go play under a coach that's kind of known as a quarterback whisperer. He'll say good things about me and I'll revive my career. Maybe that's more valuable than being a for sure backup somewhere else. But I do imagine that with an incentive-laden deal, that the conversation was there like, hey, no promises, but you saw we went through 4 quarterbacks last year. There's a good chance you're going to get on the field. And we don't know for sure at the time. We don't know for sure if Brock's going to play week 1. And we really like Trey, but he's coming off of an injury as well. You'll have your chance to compete. And that was enough for him. And so now it sounds like the chance to compete is not for number 1, which I'm sure he's probably a little bummed about, but every day is a competition. And that's the way that the 49ers are probably going to treat this whole thing. And training camp's going to be fun because of it. So let's go. But I definitely think there's some legs to that one for sure. I find it hard to believe that Sam would have came here on a deal like that if he wasn't told he was given the chance to compete.
A buddy of mine who's a scout said to me, you know what, Krug, I'm going to tell you what I think. I said, give me your thoughts on the Niner quarterback thing, not reports. Just tell me what you think. You watch football, you know the players, you know Kyle, you know what he likes. And you know all 4 of these quarterbacks to some degree. What do you think? And this guy who gets paid for his opinion said, I think Brock Purdy's your 1, and wait for this, Brandon Allen will be number 2. That's what he said. And I said, what? What? Really? Brandon Allen is going to be number 2 in front of Sam Darnold and Trey Lance? Really?
Wow.
And he said, Brandon Allen does what Kyle Shanahan wants. He's got movement. He's got ability to run the bootleg game. He's got decent. He's got requisite arm strength, and he said he's a playmaker who's developed quietly behind Joe Burrow, and people don't realize that. And that Kyle is hot on Brandon Allen, and sees way more potential in Brandon Allen than I do or anybody else does. And I said, I cannot believe that. And I thought Brandon Allen, I told him, I said, I was there at every practice. I thought Brandon Allen had a couple really good days. I'm not gonna pretend that he was terrible. He was not terrible. He threw some dimes. There's no question. But he also had some nightmarish days. He had one day that I don't think he completed a pass. I mean, he might have been 0 for 7 or 1
for 8 or something. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there was one day that he was truly off. And he's like, it's not about minicamp accuracy. It's about, can you run the system? And are you going to he said at the end of the day, Kyle wants mobility and a good decision maker and reliability. And Brandon Allen checks those boxes more than inexperienced Trey Lance and wildly inconsistent Sam Darnold. He's like, Krug, take it to the bank. Brandon Allen will wind up being QB2 for the 49ers. And this guy draws a check, and this guy's not a first-year scout. This guy's been doing this for 22 years. So, I mean, it's been, it blew my freaking mind. But at the same time, the same way I try to keep an open mind, I'm like, all right, I'm going to keep an open mind. I go, I'm going to share that. I, of course, am not going to divulge your name, but I'm going to share that. He's like, feel free to share it. I've said it to 8 or 9 different people that have asked me about it. I said, okay.
I'm not going to jump on that guy and say he's wrong, because I'm sure his opinion is very validated and very credible. But if that is how it plays out, I'll just say this. Kyle deserves whatever happens to this team. I'll just leave it at that. And if that means Purdy goes down and you're relying on Allen and you've gotten rid of Trey and Sam Darnold's not even the guy, but you paid Sam Darnold to kind of be that guy, he deserves everything that comes his way. I'll simply leave it at that.
If Brandon Allen, I mean, I went back and watched Brandon Allen at Arkansas. And, I saw some nice things. You can see mobility, but I don't even think he's got Purdy type arm strength. I think he's got arm strength that's even less than Brock. And I don't see Purdy escapability. I kind of see a guy who knows. I'll say this. He's very competitive. I'll give him the competitive thing. And I can see the footwork is definitely improved in this camp compared to what I watched when I watched him at Arkansas, which is to be expected. But that would just blow my mind if Brandon Allen somehow is number 2. I said to him, I said, you know what? Unless Trey Lance falls on his face in the preseason, I think Trey Lance has got to be number 2 going into the season, ahead of Darnold and ahead of Allen. I said, otherwise, I think you're going to get a significant pushback from a lot of people that are going to be really, really disappointed. That they're going to be disappointed first that Trey's not getting his opportunity. But I said that I feel like that disappointment is going to then be turned into some really anti-Kyle and John rhetoric that is going to be seen in social media and will be seen by the NFL world. Because I think there's an understanding here that Trey Lance is going to get an opportunity. And if Trey Lance doesn't get that opportunity to compete and an opportunity to play, and Brandon Allen gets that opportunity, Brandon Allen, all I got to say is Brandon Allen better have a hell of a preseason. Otherwise, there's going to be significant pushback.
Yeah, I don't know that any of that necessarily matters, like if the fans are outraged, but here's where it does matter. If for some reason Brock Purdy doesn't pan out and they're wrong about that decision, then all the people that have supported Kyle through thick and thin, a lot of those people are going to jump off that bandwagon. And that's when it starts to matter, because York is definitely cognizant of the fan base and the pulse of the fan base. And you can tell that in his decision making many times over. So everything's great now. And if Brock works out and he plays the whole season and is the future, everything is good to go. Who cares about the Trey Lance situation? Who cares about if he chose Brandon Allen to be the back? None of that matters. But if Brock Purdy gets hurt again, or he's not the guy that they think he was, and then Trey doesn't get the shot, or Sam, who you spent money on, and you go with Brandon Allen and you don't win, yeah, it's going to be very, very ugly, very quickly. I agree.
I mean, Brandon Allen better do something extraordinary in the preseason, or Trey Lance and Sam Darnold better fall on their face and really look bad, or there's going to be an awful lot of people going, "What? Really?"
Yeah.
What is the end game if Brandon Allen plays well? Forget where he sits on the depth chart, but if Brandon Allen plays well in the preseason, like my scout friend says he's going to, what's the impact of that? Does that mean that they're going to wind up trading Trey Lance? Does that mean they're going to wind up cutting or trading Sam Darnold? I mean, they're not going to have 4 quarterbacks on the roster. So who do you think ultimately gets dumped if Brandon Allen is a player?
Yeah, assuming that Brock is the starter week 1 and everything seems to be trending that way, you got to believe that Trey Lance would be the odd man out there, right? I mean, it makes the most sense. He's the youngest. He probably has the most value. You probably want to do right by him if he's everything that you've said he is, a nice kid, and you really enjoy him in the locker room, and he's a good teammate and smart and all the things that you've said. Then I got to imagine he would be the odd man out just based off of wanting to do right by him. But then also because I think that you probably get the most for him than you would maybe over a Sam Darnold or an Allen. So yeah, I would say Trey would have to be the odd man out.
What is Trey worth if indeed the deal comes down and they cross that bridge? What do you think he nets? What do you think he brings them?
Man, if it goes down like that and Allen's the backup, a Cheez-It, some pocket lint, you know what I mean? Like anything? I don't know. Is there any value there? I'm not sure. I really couldn't tell you.
The other topic is people are suggesting that, the Niners, like, what would you trade Trey Lance for? What would you trade Sam Darnold for? I think based on what I've seen, the 49ers have one area of deficiency, and it's defensive end.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of people that don't agree with me on this one. I don't see what they had last year at all. Last year, I liked Jordan Willis. I liked Samson Ebukam. I believed in Charles Omenihu. This year, I don't like what I see out of Cleveland Farrell. A lot. I mean, he looks very ordinary to me. Austin Bryant. Now, granted, there's no pads on, but Austin Bryant's got really skinny legs. Robert Beal has been totally non-existent in my eyes. I mean, I'm not hunting for looking for guys. I want guys to show me what they got and stand out. Robert Beal does not stand out. Daryl Johnson, who they just signed, is just a guy. I mean, I'm not sure that he's a significant guy. So I love Drake, and I think Drake's going to be terrific. Bosa's Bosa. But to me, the Niners are a Bosa hammy away from having some real issues at defensive end. Do you see it as that big of a problem, or are you a big fan of Hyder and Farrell and Bryant and Beal and Alex Barrett and Daryl Johnson? Because to me, I don't see an Ebukam and a Omenihu or a Willis in that group.
Yeah, I think on the surface right now, it definitely does seem like that's the glaring weakness. And the 49ers are in a really good situation and actually kind of unique for them. They're usually bumped up really tough against the salary cap. And this year, right now, at this moment, they're not. They've got a cool, I think, $11 million. They're going to get more when they extend Bosa. And so I think right now, there's multiple guys that are out there on the market. I believe Clowney's still out there. We know Yannick's out there. I think Houston's still out there. There's some guys. Then you have the trade side of things, which, Chase Young, Danielle Hunter, they have assets. they could probably pull something off right now for any of the guys that I've mentioned. But because there is a lot available, and because you haven't even gone into camp yet, I think they're going to be patient. And right now, that weakness does seem to be defensive end. But what if they get a week before the season and a corner goes down, or an offensive lineman goes down, a tackle goes down, Trent Williams goes down, God heaven forbid, or McKivitz? They don't really have any tackles on this team that you can trust. Now all of a sudden the weakness is like, oh God, thank God we didn't spend that free money in our assets. Let's go get a tackle from somebody. Let's go trade for that. So I think being patient right now in this moment is the right move. But unless something changes significantly, I do think that it is trending towards you probably need another guy on this team that can be a guy opposite of Bosa if you truly want to win a Super Bowl this year.
This is kind of interesting, and I don't know this guy. I don't know this reporter, but CBS Sports Cody Benjamin said the Niners recently became a potential suitor for Chase Young. And now there's a guy named Lorenzo Reyna who's basically putting out a rumor saying that that maybe the 49ers would deal Juwan Jennings in a deal to the Commanders. That the Commanders have two solid receivers in Jahan Dotson and Terry McLaurin, but could use a target like Juwan Jennings in some kind of a deal for Chase Young.
Sold.
I mean,
sold. I think how quickly can you make that deal if that's available?
Well, I mean, I come on. There's no way that it's Juwan.
You're gonna have to give up something else, but still sold.
I'm not afraid to move a draft pick of significance for a good defensive end, whether it be Danielle Hunter, Montez Sweat, Chase Young. To me, I think they're in the right. They're in their Super Bowl window. They're they have a need. They've proven that they got 3 or 4 compensatory picks coming their way. If they want to make a trade, I mean, if they have a need, I got no problem. And I think Juwan Jennings might not make this football team anyway. So to me, I think that's a great call if they can do it.
Oh, absolutely. I don't know if that thing really has legs, but I'm in. If you had to trade, let's say it was Jennings in a 4th, but the 4th, depending on how well Chase Young plays for you, could go all the way up to a 3rd round pick. Done. I'm doing that right now.
Super chat from Vincent Campos. He says, Jesse, you and the movie Up have a lot in common. LOL. I'm not sure what that means.
From what sense?
Just he's trying to say that your channel's going up, maybe.
Oh, maybe. Or I don't know. Vincent's the guy. Vincent's the guy that says I've been negative as of late. So I don't know. Maybe I'm being positive right now. I don't know. I don't know what to make of that.
Oh my God. More idiocy here from Ted. But before we get to that, let me get to this. Who do you think? Give me some players that you think are going to be the last cuts on this roster. I went down the 53-man roster, and I'll just tell you, I made the cuts already, and I have 3 quarterbacks, 5 receivers, 8 offensive linemen, 3 tight ends, 3 quarterbacks, 5 running backs, including the fullback, 10 D linemen, 6 linebackers, 6 corners, 4 safeties, 3 specialists, 53. I have the last cuts being Charlie Warner, Miles Hartsfield, and T.Y. McGill. But I also have
T.Y. Wow.
Yeah, I have T.Y. getting dumped. But I also have other guys not on the roster that I think will be traded, or at least considered traded, probably cut if not traded. And the traded list is Juwan Jennings, Brandon Allen, but of course not, after listening to my scouting buddy,
right.
I may have to rethink that, but I got him as a possible trade candidate.
Okay.
Javon Kinlaw, Demetrius Flanagan Fowles, Ambry Thomas, and Zane Gonzalez as all potential trade candidates So I don't have those guys on the roster.
What about
either.
Elijah Mitchell? Would you be surprised if they traded him?
I wouldn't, but I have Awat and LeBourne and Coletto on the practice squad. To
Okay.
me, for Elijah Mitchell to be traded, one of those guys has to really fire.
Okay.
Otherwise, I've got McCaffrey, Mitchell, Mason, TDP, and Juszczyk.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think you would be going chalk there, which I don't necessarily disagree. I feel like if a running back's going to get traded, it would be Mitchell. Like if Mason really stepped up, they love Mason though.
Well, I'll say this, and that was probably my next thing is I think Mason could be a season-changing type of player. Like
I do too.
I think everybody thinks of Mason as like here, but I actually think that Mason's going to be like way up here and change the fortune of the team. Like I think there's a very good chance that Mason could be a significantly better running back than people think today.
If he and CMC both got, let's say, 150 carries this year, I think he actually might have more yards than CMC. Now, CMC is a better all-around player, obviously, but if you're looking for the tough yardage, you're looking for goal line situations, Mason's definitely going to get those. But I also just think that he's a more punishing in between the tackle runner. I think he gets super physical, and he clearly is starting to lighten up a little bit, which means now he's going to be even quicker. I don't think that would be that crazy. I could see a scenario like that happening. Now, I don't think they're going to get the same amount of carries. I'd be shocked if that was even close, but I think Mason could be that good. I really do.
Mason in the offseason, I don't know what he's weighing, but he weighed 240 last year and he wasn't fat. I mean, there's no fat on the kid, but this year he looks lighter to me and noticeably faster. So I think there's a chance that, like, if I was making a bold prediction, one of my bold predictions is that Jordan Mason becomes a significant weapon in the 49er offense right there with the stars. You got Debo, you got Ayuk, you got Kittle, you got CMC. I think Mason has star potential, not just, hey, it's a nice running back. Hey, that's a nice second year back. To me, I think he has the ability to elevate to star.
I love that. And I can see it. Man, it seemed like everybody that was at camp last year couldn't stop talking about how good he looked. And then if he looks even better now, I mean, I don't know. You got to find a way to get him some touches is all I'm going to say, regardless of whether Mitchell's here or not, whether, CMC's healthy or not. I think all of that is irrelevant. You need to find a way to get him 10 touches a game and just see if you have something special here, because he might be, you talk about a 1-2 punch. If he's as good as what some people think he is, what it sounds like the way you're explaining him, and he's a 1-2 punch with CMC. Can you imagine? Man.
Well, it's funny. We're doing an interview of Bobby T the other day, and Lindsey Polaris from the 49ers asked Bobby T, who never likes to say anything good about young players. He is the ultimate tough love guy. He is the ultimate prove it guy. When he was asked about Awat and Leyburn, he's like, I don't want to talk about those guys. I don't want to talk about those. They haven't done anything yet. It's like he likes them, but he doesn't want to talk about them.
For sure. Yeah, I get it.
When it came time to ask about the potential of Jordan Mason, he said his potential is unlimited. And that's what I see as well. I see kind of a Marshawn Lynch type back. A big, bruising, upright runner who runs through arm tackles. But at the weight that he's at now, he also has run away from you ability. He's not a 240-pound plugger. He's like running away from the defense kind of a guy. I think he's really special. We'll see.
How much did Marshawn Lynch weigh? 230? 225?
225 maybe.
Yeah, I mean his combine it says 215. There's no way he was anywhere close to that when he was in Seattle. No way.
You think he was bigger?
Yeah, oh
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, I would
definitely.
say 225 for sure. Maybe close to 230.
230, yeah. Which it
I,
sounds like Mason probably is in that range now. And Marshawn could definitely run away from people too. I mean, the Beastquake didn't happen because he couldn't get away from people. Like he'll break some tackles, but he also can get you in a straight line speed contest every once in a while too. So yeah, I see a lot. And the other thing too, I think what made Marshawn Lynch so good was his feet. I think he had beautiful movement in his feet. I mean, he could get on his toes and get shifty on you and change direction very, very easily. It was effortless for him. On top of obviously being able to run through tackles, but I think his feet are what made him special. I actually see that a lot in Mason. I see a lot of those same things where he can get on his toes and make a change of direction very, very quickly, very sudden for a man of his size.
Yeah, it's a great call. People said that about Marshawn going back to Cal. That he had unbelievable feet.
Yeah. That's
He
what
really
made
stood
Bettis
out.
really good too. Bettis, for as big as Bettis was, man, he had good feet as well.
It's like Le'Veon Bell.
Yeah.
Big guy, big backs with great feet. Also, shout out to Marshawn. Last weekend, my kid volunteered. Him and Marcus Peters did a give back to the Oakland community at McClymonds High School. My kid went there and worked the event. It was basically they put on like a little carnival for the neighborhood, paid for it, invited all the kids. It was all for free. Gave
That's
out
awesome.
prizes, rides. I mean, come on, man. I mean, when you give back to your community like that, and the community's hurting, I mean, Marshawn's gold as far as I'm concerned. And Peters is too, which leads me to my next question. Peters is a free agent. Should the Niners go? Are you satisfied with the Niners in the secondary? You referenced if the Niners run out of corners. I kind of think I like this kid, Deshaun Jameson, quite a bit.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, I wouldn't have a problem at all if the Niners were going to add a non-defensive end piece to the puzzle. I like Marcus Peters, and I think Peters is a big corner who's still. I know the advanced stats say that he was not a good year for him last year. He's a little bit of a gambler. They're picking on him a little bit more than they used to, that's for sure. But there's a dynamic nature to Marcus Peters. He takes the ball away. He does take some unnecessary risks. But I'll tell you right now, that's a guy that I would have a ton of interest in the 49ers signing and bringing to Santa Clara this summer. What do you think of that? And where are you with the Niner corners?
Yeah, I think Marcus Peters to me, he's one of those personalities that you either really, really like or you don't like. And for me, I think it's somewhere in between. It depends on the dynamic of your team. I think a locker room like the 49ers can take on a personality like Peters, and it could be a plus. But then there are teams that have personalities like that if you add one more, it's like that could be the tipping point. I love what Peters brings to the table from a competitive standpoint, from just the way that he talks trash with other teams. I mean, I love that personality archetype. So for me, I'm all about it. As far as the corner position goes, man, Ambry Thomas, it's probably it for him, unfortunately. And I was interested, or I found it interesting, and I forget who it was. It might have been Wilkes, might have been someone else, but they said really good things about Ambry Thomas. Like he was having a really good offseason. I mean, maybe when everybody else wasn't there, that's a possibility, but I don't know. It seems to me like he's on the edge, and I was a big fan of Ambry Thomas. I thought the first year when he came in and got that interception, what was it, week 18 or what have you, to end that game, and a lot of people were really down on him and thought he was playing bad because he would give up some plays. And I thought play in and play out, he did really well, and I took up for him. But last year, he took a bit of a backslide, and I think he's fighting for his job. So I think he's fighting for his job. I think Luter could be a difference maker this year. I really love Womack. Womack is maybe my biggest dark horse on this team. I think he could be a different. The way you're talking about Mason on offense, I feel that way about Womack on defense. I think he's the type of guy that will go take the ball away. He's an absolute playmaker, and if he gets his opportunity, he's going to make some really big plays for this team. So I think all in all, I'm okay with the secondary, but I'm not against adding a guy like Marcus Peters for depth at all.
What is your bold prediction for this year? Do you have one that you're like, you know what, I'm going to go with one? Now, I know it's tough because you haven't necessarily put your eyes on it. You'll feel better when you do. By the way, I love the Womack angle. Womack in the mini camp moved around like he was a 4-3 guy. I mean, like Danny Gray's speed stood out on offense, but sure. Womack's speed stood out on defense. And I just thought that, last year I thought he was good, but this year he is playing at a speed that is just on a different level. I think there's a good chance that Womack is a major, major player in their secondary for years to come. But give me a bold prediction, something that if we hear it, we might go, what? But you really believe it and you will stand behind it. I know that's it's putting you on the spot a little bit.
It is. And I actually, an hour ago, I probably would have told you I didn't have one, but I kind of came up with one on the spot with Grant a little bit. And I do believe that this is entirely a big time possibility. I think that it is very possible that no quarterback on the San Francisco 49ers throws for 4,000 yards this year, but Kittle, Ayuk, and Debo all go over 1,000 receiving.
So you're basically saying we're going to get 3 games of this guy, 4 games of that guy, 4 games of this guy, like that kind of.
Enough to parse it out. Like if you're going to have 3 1,000-yard receivers, you're definitely going to have a quarterback go over 4,000 yards. Like that's a guarantee. But I think there will be, even if it's 3 or 4 games, that's enough to pull you under. So if Purdy misses 3 or 4 games, that would be enough to hold him under 4,000 with guys pacing like that. I just think that all 3 guys are going to eat this year, but no quarterback is going to be there for all 17 games in order to eclipse the 4,000 yard mark, which should happen when you have 3 receivers going over 1,000.
That is,
which is also very hard to do.
Yeah. So you like the Niner receivers to get to a different level, but you're saying it's going to come from a myriad of different QBs throughout the year.
Yeah.
Can I ask you what kind of record you think they're going to have?
The 49ers record?
Yeah.
So
they're going to use all these quarterbacks.
Yeah, no. When I was going through the schedule, I had them at 13-4, but I think realistically 12-5. There's probably a loss in there that I'm not accounting for. I think they're going to be 12-5 this year, and I think they're going to get the number 1 seed.
So not only do you think they're going to use a bunch of quarterbacks, but you think all their quarterbacks for the most part are going to produce.
Yeah, I do. One of the things that I said early this offseason, and I'm not a Sam Darnold guy. Everybody knows I'm not a Sam Darnold guy. Everybody also knows that I would prefer that they give Lance a chance. But for this season and this season alone.
Why are you not a Darnold guy? Is it the turnovers or
my number 1 trait for quarterbacks is leadership, and number 2 would be decision making. And I think he's a horrible decision maker. It's why I was never big on Jimmy Garoppolo. I thought he was a bad decision maker. I don't care what talent you have. If you're a poor decision maker, you're gonna handicap your own talent every single time because you just make bad decisions. And I think he's a horrible decision maker. So I'm not big on Sam Darnold. But that being said, if I told you, Larry, the 49ers are gonna they're gonna go to the NFC Championship again. I'm not gonna tell you if they're gonna win or lose. That's irrelevant. But they're gonna go to the NFC Championship. But I'm not gonna tell you who the starting quarterback is for the San Francisco 49ers. I think if I went through every single scenario and said, well, Brock Purdy's gonna start all season, or Trey Lance is gonna start all season, or Sam Darnold's gonna start all season, you would believe potentially that they would make it to the NFC Championship regardless of that quarterback. I believe that. I believe this team is that good that any 3 of those guys for 1 season can get this team back to an NFC Championship. And I don't think there's that big of a drop off at this moment in their careers between any of the 3 to say for sure if this guy starts, they can't get it done. So I do. I believe that any of the guys could start and they could win games. Definitely.
My bold prediction, and last year at this time, I would have said, man, Brock Purdy is real. This year, I will say, I really love Jordan Mason to be a significant player. I really think Marcelino, McCrary Ball, and Samuel Womack are significant players on defense. But to me, that's not bold enough. The bold prediction I'm going to make is that Spencer Wagee is going to make this team and be a significant rotation player up front.
Okay.
And I think he's going to make it over guys like Kinlaw. Now, I don't know about I'm a little skeptical on Kinlaw, to be honest. But I really love Wagee, and I think Wagee may not only make the team, but he may be a factor on their defensive line this year. And that is
now it makes sense why you said Ty wouldn't make the team.
Yeah. And I love Ty. I love Ty. But and you know what? Ty not making the team is also me kind of hoping that Kalia Davis is going to be great. But that's a little bit of a projection as well, right? I mean,
for sure.
My 10 D linemen are Bosa, Hargrave, Armstead, Drake, Cleveland Farrell, Kevin Givens, Kerry Hyder, Austin Bryant, Kalia Davis, Spencer Wagee.
Okay.
Is that 10? Let's see.
You said Kinlaw, right? I did hear Kinlaw in there.
No.
You didn't say
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah. So my 10 D linemen again.
Give them to me one more time.
Bosa, Hargrave, Armstead, Drake, Cleveland Farrell, Givens, Kerry Hyder, Kalia Davis, Spencer Wagee, Austin Bryant. McGill cut, Davidson cut, Barrett cut,
Kinlaw traded.
Johnson cut, Beal practice squad, and Kinlaw traded.
Okay.
I'm a little worried, Jesse, about Kinlaw because I don't see Kinlaw. I don't know. Well, Chris Kosherik has said a lot of great things about Kinlaw for sure, but I don't know.
He also wasn't participating, was he, during those mini camps?
Well, he was initially, but he wasn't at the end. And I don't know what that means. Does that mean that he's having knee pain? Or, I mean, he needs to be out there. Right? So
that has to be either that or there was something going on with the family that we don't know about. Was he there?
I didn't see him, but he could have been. He could have been in the weight room.
Okay. So it's either a knee thing or maybe he had some family emergency or something, which I definitely want to be sensitive to that. But this is a guy who
he's very
has
light.
Been forced to develop by playing in games because he hasn't been able to make it through these preseason things in the past. He came in during the COVID year. The next year, his knee kept him out. Last year, he was in and out. I mean, every rep is very important to him. The way we talk about Trey Lance, we also need to talk about Javon Kinlaw. Every rep is super important to him during this time of the season. He needs everything. So the fact that he already is missing time, that is worrisome.
Bucko says, "Hi, Krug. It's Spencer Wagee. Once again, LOL. And your face is green again. Just here for your daily reminder. I do. I've got my green lights going underneath. All right, two last questions. I just bought my Athlon's, annual. Do you ever look at any of those annual magazines at all?
No.
So anyway, I like to take a look at them just because sometimes there's really good articles in the front of the magazine that somebody spent a lot of time on because it's a once a year mag.
Yeah.
Anyway, Athlon's has the 5 or 6 teams in the NFL whose Super Bowl window is coming to a close. And the number one team on the list for Super Bowl winning Super Bowl window coming to a close. You want to guess?
49ers.
49ers.
Yeah.
Does that surprise you? And do you agree with that? The 49ers, if they like Brock Purdy or Trey Lance or Sam Darnold, they're all under 25. they've got a ton of young players in their first or second year. I can't even think of more than 2 or 3 players on the entire roster, Trent Williams being one of them, that is even approaching the end. Should the 49ers window be the window that's about to close? Really? And do you understand that?
I think it all depends on what you think of the quarterback position, because if you think that the guy is on this roster, then absolutely not. That thing is, we're just starting to see that thing open up if they have the guy at quarterback. But if none of these guys work out for any reason, then absolutely, that thing is extremely close to closing up. I agree with that. So I think it just comes down to your interpretation of the quarterback position and whether you think the guy exists and you trust Kyle to know who that guy is. I think both of those things are very, very important. So I don't necessarily know where I stand on that. I mean,
okay, even if none of these quarterbacks are it,
yeah,
it still doesn't mean their window would be closed. I mean, then you're assuming, if you don't think the quarterbacks are it, that it's closed already, right? If these young quarterbacks aren't any good, then their window's not open. To me, it's
no. Well, hold on, not because there's a difference. There's not any good or not good enough to pay. I think those are two different things. And so, if, for example, I don't think Brock Purdy, to me, is going to be that guy that you want to give $40 million a year to, strip away the roster and say, hey, go carry this team. But Brock Purdy at $900,000, sign me up. I definitely think that you can go win with that caliber quarterback, especially. I mean, you're getting a steal of all steals. He might be the best value player in the whole NFL at that price, right? There's a difference. So even if I don't think he's the long-term answer, at 900,000, I'm in. But the moment that goes up to 30 million, 40 million, whatever you have to pay him, I'm out. And so the window might not close this year, but you might have 2 years with Brock Purdy before you would have to cash in on him and start stripping players away, or Kittle's too old, or CMC, or you're going between Ayuk and Debo and Trent Williams retires. I think there's a lot of moving parts from some of the players that have been big pieces on this team. And if neither quarterback is the guy long-term that you can pay, eventually these picks that you spent on Trey Lance, these 3 first-round picks, or the picks that you also sent to go get CMC, who 2 years from now may not be a major contributor anymore in this league, running backs lose it very quickly. Those are going to catch up to you. So you need a quarterback to pan out at some point. So I can see that. I can see that scenario being realistic.
I just think there's so many. Really, the Niners are one. Yeah, Trent Williams is getting up there. Banks young, Burford young. The line is relatively young. The receivers are not old. The running backs are not old.
Think 2 years from now, though. So CMC is now 29 years old, right?
But 2 years is a long time in the NFL. 2 years from now and now is a big difference.
For sure. And a lot can change. Obviously, this roster is going to change in 2 years. So I understand what you're saying now. But, I mean, are they saying the window's done after this year? I would probably disagree with that. But I think 2 years from now, yeah, this thing could be completely closed. Absolutely.
Who do you look at as at the end?
I mean, obviously,
who's not going to be here?
Well, in 2 years, I could see a scenario where CMC's not here. I could see and I'm not saying all these guys are going to be gone. First of all, we know Juszczyk's not going to be back next year. I think that we can pretty much say with confidence. So I would assume he's gone. 2 years from now, I don't think Trent Williams will be here. 2 years from now, you might need to move on from CMC and or Kittle. And you may have already made a decision between Debo and Ayuk, and maybe that decision was shipping Debo out. I don't know. I mean, I could see a scenario where 4 legitimate stars on this team in today's world are not on that team. 2 years from now when we're starting a season?
I'm seeing Armstead, Trent Williams, maybe Kittle. And those are good. I mean, let's be honest. Those are great players.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll, in some people's minds,
I forgot about Armstead. Yeah. Hargrave also. Hold on. They have an out on Hargrave's contract after 2 years, and he's going to be 32, 33. So that's a possibility as well. There could be a lot of turnover in 2 years. Now, it doesn't mean they don't replenish. We don't know what that looks like. But as far as stars on this roster right now in 2 years, there's quite a few guys that may not be here.
Do you think that there's a chance that Hargrave isn't significantly good with the 49ers? Do you think there's any chance that Hargrave comes here and can't replicate the success he's had in Philly here?
Oh, no, I don't think. I think there's almost zero chance of that happening. Now, I don't know if he's going to get double-digit sacks again. If you mean replicate last year, he's only done that once in his career. So, right. But can he be an 8-sack guy and be an absolute menace? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Next to Bosa and Armstead, definitely can do that. Yes.
Couple last ones. I got one on the league and one more on the quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
It's noticeable at this point to me that there's a common denominator between the people that question Brock's upside. Those seem to be the same people that want to see Trey Lance. Do you agree? The same people that
for the most part,
the same people that question Brock's, the same people that question Brock's upside and question his arm strength and question his whatever, want to see Trey Lance play.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point.
I'm not seeing anybody who's saying, "Man, I really question Brock, but I don't think Trey's much."
I think also I want to clear this up though. I do. Yes, I agree with that. But if you are,
and I think that makes an impact. Do they have an impact on one another? Do people
not necessarily? And that's what I'm trying to clear up.
Trey plays so bad that they're now trying to look for flaws in a quarterback that was wildly successful.
No. Because here's what I'll say, and I can only speak for myself, right? If the question is who played better between Brock Purdy and Trey Lance, regardless of did they get an opportunity, do they deserve a second, none of that stuff matters right now. Just who played better. It's Brock Purdy. Like there's no argument there. I don't think anybody in their right mind can look at the two and how they played for short stints and say Trey Lance played better than Brock Purdy. Absolutely not. You cannot say that. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm forecasting Brock Purdy to be better long term. That's not what I'm saying. But definitely, if you're looking at this objectively, Brock Purdy played better. But what I'm saying is, I think they go hand in hand. If you believe in Brock Purdy, then door is shut. I don't need to see Trey Lance, right? Like that makes sense. I'm also probably out, not necessarily. In your case, you're not out on Trey Lance, but I think I don't need to see what Trey Lance brings because I'm in on Brock Purdy. But if I think that Trey Lance still has more potential than Brock Purdy, then definitely I'm going to say that Brock Purdy's ceiling is not as high as Trey Lance's. Otherwise, there would be no point to see Trey Lance. So I think it makes sense why they go hand in hand. Hopefully I explained that well. I feel like I didn't, but
no. I see where you're going. If you had to wager every penny that you have to your name, that Brock Purdy and Trey Lance were both franchise quarterbacks or neither franchise quarterbacks, what are you going with? Because
neither.
I'm going with both.
I'm going neither.
With both. Really? You're going with neither.
Yeah, and I'll say this, Larry. I was big on Lance coming into that 2021 draft, but one thing that I told to Grant leading up to that draft is this is supposed to be a draft that has a ton of good quarterbacks. Statistically speaking, only one of these guys is actually going to be a guy. The rest are not. Statistically speaking, I think it's almost a near impossibility that both of these guys are a franchise quarterback. I do.
You would say that last part again.
I think statistically speaking, It's almost an impossibility that both of these guys are a franchise quarterback.
You mean playing odds?
Yeah, if I'm betting odds, if the odds are both are or neither are, I think the odds are way in my favor that neither are.
I agree.
But if you want to say that one is, now I'm intrigued. Now I'm probably in on that bet. But because you gave me an either or, I'm taking the safer bet. If I'm betting everything, I'm going the safest route. And I would say the safest route, probability wise, is neither of these guys.
I think both are. I really do. I think both are. I think Trey, people that have decided that Trey Lance can't play, I think are wildly premature. And
I agree.
if you question that, go look at the resumes of every freaking Hall of Fame quarterback that ever played. Outside of like 5 of them, they all started slowly. Dan Fouts was 5-20-1. Aikman was bad. Peyton was bad. 28 picks. Staubach was bad. Montana was 2-6. Young was bad. Most of these guys are bad at the beginning. So I look at Trey and go 2-2, 5 touchdowns, 3 picks. Didn't play at all, hardly in college. Jumping from the FCS to a very complex offensive system. I think he's got a huge amount of potential. And I really think he's going to be a franchise quarterback. And as far as Purdy, I mean, look at the quarterbacks who have started fast. Outside of Jimmy and Kaepernick, name me a quarterback that started fast that has looked great that's petered out.
Baker Mayfield.
Did he start fast? I don't think so. Baker Mayfield was sub 500 as a rookie.
Oh, you're saying from a win standpoint. I'm talking statistically.
Or even from I don't know. I don't have his stats in front of me.
Nick Foles threw 27 touchdowns to 2 interceptions in 10 games.
Okay.
And then he won a Super Bowl a couple years later.
But I think was probably what, year 3 or something?
Year 2.
Okay, Nick Foles. I'll give you Nick Foles. But I'm just saying, like, the guys who started fast that I know of, Russell Wilson, Dan Marino, Patrick Mahomes, Roethlisberger. There's a few more besides that. But those guys, for the most part, have had very, very good careers. There's only a couple guys who have started fast in the NFL. Rick Meyer may have started fast in the NFL. I think he was Rookie of the Year in the AFC, or maybe the Offensive Rookie of the Year as that first year, and then got sacked the most in the league 3 years running, lost his confidence and kind of dissipated. But for the most part, I think if you start fast, that's a great sign. But if you start slow, that's not a bad sign. So I'm not down on Trey's beginning. I'm not even down on Darnold's beginning. I mean, I can point to the Jets, and I don't like Darnold, really. I'm not a Darnold guy. But I'm not ready to sign him off. I mean, I can think of 5-10 quarterbacks that hadn't done much by 25 that were really good quarterbacks in the NFL. So
I think Geno Smith has to change a lot of people's minds. Like, I'm not a big fan of Sam, and I don't think he will turn it around, but I'm not going to say there's 0% chance that he'll turn it around. I mean, Geno Smith's a great example. Who saw that coming?
Yeah, no, I didn't. And
who thought at 31 years old or however old he is, like, oh, Geno Smith's going to be a Pro Bowler this year? 0 people. That's who.
Here's the other thing. An old football scout told me a long time ago, he goes, when you get to the NFL as a quarterback, there's a race that starts. And the race is, can you learn what to do before your body gets so beaten up that you're now diminished physically? And I thought we were going to see that from Joe Burrow, because Burrow had that terrible injury early in his career. And I'm like, man, this guy was great at LSU, but he's going to get beaten up so early that his career is going to wash away. And he has found a way to come back from that crushing injury and establish himself as, I don't know, one of the top 2 or 3 guys in the league, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I really believe that's really a relevant thing. It's like, you don't know what you're doing, and the game's super fast when you're a rookie, And if your body gets broken and suddenly you can't move anymore, okay, or your arm gets broken, in Brock's case, your elbow, and maybe you can't throw anymore, that's obviously not good. But if you can learn what to do before you get diminished physically because of all the hits that you take, you got a great chance to succeed. We'll see. We'll see where it goes.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a life thing too. I mean, it's funny because I never understood this as a kid, but my dad was always like, "Son, if I had my mind today and could go back to high school, like how differently things would go. Like you would run high school. Like if you had the smarts that you have at 30, but in a high school frame, you would run things. You know what I mean? And I never understood that. And then of course you get older, you're like, oh yeah, duh. Like, of course. That's probably the way it is for a quarterback. It's like if your body can stay upright, your mind is going to be so far ahead of the young players in this league that you're always going to be a step ahead. And for Tom Brady, one of the few guys, or like the only guy that really could play without longevity because his body was able to keep up with his mind just enough for him to continue to be great year in and year out. So you see it, the mind, once it catches up and you're ahead of people now, if the body's there, it makes a ton of sense why that would be the case.
Last question. Every year in the NFL, we see, it's not like baseball. It's not like the NBA. Teams that stunk become very good.
Yeah.
Teams that were really good start to fall apart. There's going to be a surprise team. There's going to be maybe 2, maybe 3. Who are they going to be? Who's going to be the team that goes from nothing to something this year? Or at least who's on your list as a candidate for that?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are talking about the Lions. To me, they wouldn't be a surprise. The way that they came on last year and the way they finished, I would be shocked if they don't do something. The team for me that I think is going to surprise a lot of people comes out of the AFC, which we know it's going to be tough to do anything in the AFC. I mean, there's going to be some really good teams that don't make the playoffs. I think is the Cleveland Browns. And I say that solely because the NFL is unforgiving, Larry. And when you're out of the league for a year plus, the way that Deshaun Watson was, it is hard to just jump back into things and be great. But he was a top 5 quarterback before all the stuff happened that, he caused himself for sure. But regardless, he was out of the league for a year and a half. And you're talking about a guy who can potentially be a top 5 quarterback in this league and has shown that. If he gets anywhere close to that, with Chubb, who I think is a top 3 running back right now. They've got a top 5 offensive line. I think they've got decent receivers and a decent tight end over there. I think that offense can be a top 5 offense if he gets anywhere close to what he was before. So I'm going to say the Cleveland Browns.
That's a good call. I got 2 in the AFC, 2 in the NFC. Tell me what you think. In the AFC, I like Sean Payton in Denver. I just think that they'll have a resurgence on offense. Russell is not as bad as he showed. And I think Peyton going there, I think there's a lot more talent there than people think. And I'm going to go with the Houston Texans. I really think, first of all, I like D'Amico. I think Bobby Slowick's offense works. The cupboard is not bare. I mean, at receiver, I think the kid Tank Dell is a really underrated rookie receiver. You got Robert Woods, you got Nico Collins, John Mechie, decent offensive line with Laramie Tunsil at left tackle. CJ Stroud, according to my buddies down in Houston, is looking very, very good early on.
I love CJ Stroud, man. He was in this draft, he was the one for me.
And, they've got Damian Pierce at running back, so they got a ready-made running back. Devin Singletary's there, and then you add Will Anderson to your defense.
Jimmy Ward.
You got Jimmy Ward on the back end. Derek Stingley Jr. is a really good player. Jalen Petrie, the free safety, is a really good player. They've got some nice pieces there. D'Amico, I think, is really a very good football coach. He's from that organization. He's from that. He got what he wanted in the draft, and Will Anderson. I think Anderson's a super difference maker. So I really like those two teams in the AFC. And I mean, what did Houston win? 2 games or something last year, and Denver didn't win much.
For sure.
In the NFC, there's an awful lot of buzz about the Falcons, Jesse. I mean, I don't know how you feel about the Falcons. There's an awful lot of talk about them. I do like Drake London. I do like that head coach, Arthur Smith. I mean, there's a lot to like there. Bijan Robinson, I think, is a running back that can hit the ground running. I think he's going to be a top 5, top 10 fantasy back this year in those drafts. I know it's asking a lot of Ritter, but Taylor Heineke's also there. So they got 2 quarterbacks they may be able to win some games with. Atlanta, to me, is interesting. And the other team is Carolina. I kind of like Carolina. I know we're talking about, I'm picking some teams with rookie quarterbacks and very young quarterbacks, which doesn't happen in the NFL. But I really believe in Bryce Young, and I think Jonathan Mingo helps them. They get Miles Sanders coming in from Philly to run the rock. There's some nice pieces on defense: Derek Brown, Brian Burns, J.C. Horn. You know what I mean? Jeremy Chin. I mean, there's some decent players. Jamie Robinson, the rookie from Florida State, maybe steps in at strong safety. I think Carolina with Bryce Young. I think Bryce Young's going to be the exception to the rule. That I think I could see him be the young quarterback that steps in and plays well. Give me your thoughts on my breakout teams.
No, I mean, you went a little bit different route than me. Like, I was picking a team like, hey, this team's going to make the playoffs. But as far as like teams that can make a leap, which is actually what the question was, if I had paid attention, then yes, I could see any of those scenarios. Definitely. Houston is probably my favorite pick out of all of them because I was a Stroud honk coming into the draft, most likely. And then obviously we've got some ex-49ers coaches and players over there. So I really, really like that pick. In Carolina, I've made some friends in the content creation world with Carolina Panthers guys. I really dig what they got going on, and I'm excited for them. I know they're super excited about their quarterback situation, Bryce Young. So I like that one as well. Yeah, I like, out of the 4, those are my 2 favorite.
Last super from Steven, who's got a very wordy question here. He says, tough question to close things out. What 5 49er players would most likely jump into a crudely made submersible and a knockoff PlayStation controller to explore the Titanic? We're going current events here. We're going I did see this story.
Oh man.
I'll let you tackle that, Jesse.
I have no idea. I actually didn't hear about this story until a couple hours before I went on with Grant, and it's just awful. Like, what the heck is going on, man? Like, I don't know. It's messed up.
Steven,
it's super messed up. It's funny, right? Like, it's this super chat is funny, but I don't want to make light of it. Like, these guys are probably gonna die. What the hell? Or if they haven't already, what the heck's going on, man?
Only because I saw the Titanic last week, Steven. I'll give you one of my impressions of the old lady. I can still smell the fresh paint. I can still smell the fresh paint. What do you think? Does it sound a little bit like the old lady from Titanic?
Every time I come on, there's a new impression, and every time I'm thoroughly impressed.
And S goes, Larry, how does Trent Baalke feel about Trey Lance? You know, I like Trey Lance a lot. I just wish the kid would have torn his ACL, because if he had torn the ACL, Larry, I think his shot would have been a whole lot better. But, you know, I heard your list and I heard Jesse's list. Don't sleep on Trevor Lawrence and us Jaguars here in Jacksonville, Jesse. You know, you think you know everything about Florida, Jesse. Jacksonville, pretty nice little place, I'll tell you there, Jesse.
I feel like you've got like his cadence down too. It's not just the sound of the voice, but the cadence and the everything. It's so good. You've clearly been around Baalke way too much.
Oh my God. I asked him when Gerald Hodges was his best linebacker. I'm like, Trent, who's going to be your linebackers this year, man? Don't you have a real need at linebacker? I can't believe you're this naked at linebacker. You know, Larry, it's funny. You think you know everything about football. Let me tell you, we like our linebackers, Larry. We really like our linebackers. That was in July. Months later, 7 consecutive 100-yard rushers, Bilal Powell, Jacquizz Rodgers. I mean, all kinds
Oregon State, Jacquizz Rodgers.
Just dudes just running for 100 yards against the Niners. Look it up. We like our linebackers. Great.
Did he tell you? Did he say that though? Did he say the you think you know football, but
yes. You know, I hear you on the radio, Larry, and you think you know ball, and you know a few things, I'll tell you, my friend, and I know some people who know you, and I know your background, but let's just say this, my friend, we like our linebackers, and we really like our guys. I'm like, you got Bowman coming off an ACL and Gerald Hodges. Are you sure, Trent? Yeah, I'm very sure we like our guys. And at the end of the year, they couldn't stop anybody. Jesse, man, we always love rapping with you. Enjoy Costa Rica. Enjoy time with the family. I know you work a regular gig and you're doing the content creation and you're one of the best at it. And let me just say that this is a hard enough gig if this is all you do. And the fact of the matter that you have a wife, have a family, have kids, have a job, and still have an incredible growing multiple channels, dude, it's a credit to you. So I always love rapping with you. I look forward to seeing you in training camp. Safe travels in Costa Rica. Hopefully you go zip lining. Tip one back for me. And thanks again, brother.
Thank you, Larry. I appreciate it. Thank you to everybody in the chat that supports Larry and myself. Much love. See you later, man.
Have fun in Costa Rica, Jesse. Later,
thanks,
bro.
Trent.
Later. The great Jesse Naylor. All right. Let's get to a word from our sponsors, Larry, before we get out of here. All right. Let's, of course, we are brought to you by Marin Autoglass, marinautoglass.com, 415-883-3030. Check them out. Also, we are brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, 2 locations, Emeryville and Corte Madera. Here's what they look like in Marin, where they are open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m.
A Sunday dinner. That means no matter how busy you were, no matter where the hell you were, you came to dinner on a Sunday night. Yeah, Sunday dinner without sausage, it's like a church without God. You know, how can you go to church if you don't believe in God? You know, and along with the sausage also became the discussions. That was discussion night. You know, it wasn't a typical family that you sit there and you're quiet, you know, and you don't talk with a mouthful. Oh no, man. Italians talk when they're eating. Italians even talk when they're sleeping. And definitely we talk with our hands. So if we can't express it through our mouth, through our lips, we express it with our hands. So, and that's what sausage is, really. It's an expression, you know, that life is good.
right, coming down the home stretch on the Krueg Show. Giants lead the Padres 4-1 in the 7th. I've been watching that as we've been doing this live stream. Giants, can they win tonight, make it 10 in a row? My goodness, unbelievable. The Giants are just playing great, great ball. Couple on the chat. El Camilo Dorado, sausage is an expression from Pasquale. There you go. Brown says, this guy Larry, I mean, this guy Larry, this is the Krueg Show, baby. This guy Larry's, this is my channel. Acts as though traditional media hasn't been racially biased and that these guys don't push certain agendas. We're not dumb, Larry. Brown, keep fighting the fight. I'm not sure where you're going with that one. MF says, I love the spicy Italian. Waveware, Giants are on a roll. All right, are we done for the night? No, we are not done for the night. Sushi says, Pasquale, Doc Rivers, and Balky talking to each other would be funny. I don't have enough water to be able to handle those impressions. We got this one from Dusty Gold. Larry, can you do a Pasquale similar to Trent Balky? No, I can barely do Trent Balky, and then I almost don't feel well after I do too much Balky. But I'm not done for the night. When the Giants game ends in about, what time is it? It's 9 o'clock in the West Coast. So roughly 30, 40 minutes from now when the Giants game ends, I'm going live again with the great Ned Coletti, former Giants assistant general manager, former Dodger general manager, and the great Dan Coach Emilio. They will all join me on the Krueg Show for a little baseball recap. We'll talk a little Giants baseball and probably mix it up and talk about a bunch of different things. We're only going to go for an hour on the baseball front because at 10:30, Cyrus Satsas from Locked On Golden State Warriors is going to join us. Tomorrow is the NBA draft, and the Warriors picked 19th overall. What are they going to do? Are they going to make a trade? Or are they just going to pick somebody at 19? We'll talk draft and Warriors trades at 10:30 with Cyrus Satsas. But that's all coming up in roughly 30 to 45 minutes from right now. Hope you guys enjoyed Jesse. I think Jesse's as good as it gets. I really do. I think, there's a lot of really good people out there in the content creation world. None are any better than Jesse, in my opinion. So that's why I try to do regular streams with Jesse. The guys that we have on this channel are the guys who are the best. And that's why you see a lot of Vish. And that's why you see Grant. And that's why you see Dave. And that's why you see Jesse. And that's why you see Jack Hammer. That's why you see Jordan Elliott, because these guys are the best. Matt Mayoko, Matt Barrows, the very, very best. We're going to chase down Mike Silver coming up here in the next week. We had a great stream the other night with Haberman and Middlecoff, who are really, really good as well. Check out their stuff. But that's going to do it for this stream. Thanks to everybody in the chat. If you haven't hit like and subscribe, please do. If you hit like, that just helps the algorithm, helps more people find our shows. And if you hit subscribe, you'll just get an alert on your phone as soon as we're going live. So we are almost at 19,100 subscribers. We just got to 19,000, yesterday or the day before. So we've picked up almost 100 subscribers in the last day. So the channel's cooking, and thanks to my son, Kevin, for putting out great videos. In fact, we did a video today about the Schefter story that got, I think, like 6,000. Let me see. No, actually, yeah, we did a little video, my little breakdown on Schefter's whole conversation today on the McAfee show, and we put it out, 7 hours ago, and it has almost 8,000 views. So definitely check out that video. Check out a bunch of videos that we're putting out there. We're trying to bring you guys the best content we possibly can. And the one thing with me, you may agree with me, you may disagree with me, but you know what? I don't say things for clicks, and I don't say things just for traction. Am I making money off my channel? Yes, I am. But I believe everything I say. And I can look you guys all in the eye and say, you know what? You're getting my best effort and my honest opinion. And I don't have an agenda. I walk out on the football field. I'm not looking to say that guy's good and that guy sucks. I'm letting the players tell me who's good. And I'm letting the story write itself. And then I'm just trying to bring it to you. I'm just trying to bring it to you and have an opinion, bring people in here who also have an opinion. This is maybe the best compliment I could ever get from Daniel Shabazz, who says Larry's a straight shooter. I am a straight shooter. I have no agenda. I know there are a lot of people that felt like because I predicted that Brock Purdy was going to be good, that I'm anti-Trey Lance. I'm not anti-Trey Lance. I love Trey Lance. And in fact, when the rubber meets the road, and the question that I asked Jesse was, do you believe, if you had to bet it all, that Brock and Trey are both franchise quarterbacks or not franchise quarterbacks? Where are you? He said, if I got to go one or the other, I'll bet that they're both not franchise quarterbacks. I disagree. I'm going the other way. I think Brock's a franchise quarterback. I think Trey's a franchise quarterback. And I'm 100% confident that in time, you're going to see that I'm right. Relax says 20 subs by end of July. The goal, fellas and ladies, is to get to 20,000 subs before camp. And, I don't know if does anybody know? I mean, I got to ask this question. I can't believe I'm asking you guys this question. I should know this. Does anybody know the first day of training camp for the 49ers? Does anybody know that date? I'd love to know. I Googled it. I've looked it up. I've typed in 17 different word patterns trying to figure out what is the first day of training camp. I can't find it. I got dates for mini camps. I got dates for OTAs. I got dates for the draft, for the combine, for the preseason opener, for the regulars. I don't have the date of when training camp starts. So before we get out of here, is there anybody who knows when Niner training camp starts? I'm thinking about taking the family on a nice Southern Cal vacation for a week or so before camp starts. And I think I'm going to do that in the middle of July, but I don't want to I don't want to schedule anything until I know that, when it is, and I can't fucking find it. Anyway, I get a little frustrated kind of easily. Relax says Kerr will trade the pick. 187 says Larry is a dog with a W. I think that's good. Waveware says Cy will blow that smoke in your face. That's all right. Cy wouldn't be Cy without that smoke. You can't handle the smoke. A data 84. Definitely not lazy tonight, Larry. Randall, Jesse is mid. Laughing my ass off. No, Jesse's great along with Vish. Yeah, nobody on this channel is mid. I'll say that. If you are mid, you're no longer on the channel. Or if you have some kind of an agenda that I think is like bizarre and I can't figure it out, you're no longer on the channel. Or if you blocked me on Twitter and my son while continuing to watch my stream, you're no longer on my channel, and you know who I'm talking about. We got this one too from Dusty Gold. I'm betting on 30K by the season opener. Hey man, those are fighting words. I want 30K. I thought you said 20K. 30K by the season opener. That's a lot of work in July. That's a lot of work in camp. You know what, Dusty? I like it. I'm going for it. I'm absolutely going for it. And you know what? I thank my sponsors. I thank my guests. I take shots at people that I want to take shots at. But I do want to thank all you guys because bottom line is, you know what? Without the audience, you are fucking talking to yourself. And I really appreciate every one of you guys because I know, you know what? Every single person in here has an option of something else they want to do tonight. Watch TV, listen to the radio, spend time with their family. And I respect all of your time. So the fact that you choose to join me on the Krueg Show and listen to us talk Niners and Warriors and Giants and NFL and all the different things that we get into, I just got to thank you all because I do appreciate each one of you individually. And if I could, I would thank you individually. Oh, one other thing I want to mention. We have merch on YouTube. If you go to our YouTube page, The Krueg Show, you can buy T-shirts, sweatshirts, hoodies. I believe it's all there. And one of the cool things that we're doing is every single person that buys merchandise off the show, I do a video for. I'll do a video. If you buy a sweatshirt, I'm going to do a video thanking you individually. And I don't think it's anything special or anything great. It's not like I'm, it's not that great, but that's just my personal thank you for supporting me in that way. You know, you got a lot of choices with your money, and you got a lot of choices with your entertainment. And if you feel strongly enough about our show and our content and what we're doing here to actually support the show in that way, I feel honored, and I feel like, you know what? I absolutely want to cut that video. So Vicky Pellich, who bought a sweatshirt today, I did a video for her. There were 3 or 4 other people that I did videos for, and we're doing that. We're every single person that buys merchandise on our show, on our YouTube page, within a day or 2 or 3, you're going to see a video from me thanking you individually. And they're not mass produced. Every person that buys, I do a video thanking them, because that's how much you're like, I look at it as you're individually supporting us. And I want to at least shout out and say, you know what? I appreciate you. Bucko says, we like you as a dude, Larry, which is why we come back. Clark, our chosen one, says Larry has the best eyes in the business. I don't know about that. Randall says Larry is lazy and mostly straight. Thank you. That, and when you say, why do I go into this voice lazy? My mentor, one of my lifelong friends, I almost considered him like a second father, was the guy that I worked for when I worked in the Canadian League, the late, great Bill Urbanic, former defensive coordinator of the Cincinnati Bengals, former D-line coach of the Oakland Raiders. And he's up there, and he used to say to me, Larry, I love you, boy, but you're fucking lazy. And it always made me laugh, and I miss him. I miss him a lot, and he's helped me so much. Relax says, tell Trey Lance you love him next time you see him. I do love him. I love everything about Trey Lance. Chosen One says, Larry, you ask the best questions during the press meetings. Thank you. I appreciate that. I think about my questions a lot. Dusty Gold said, this was the best move you made, Larry, leaving KMBR to start your own channel. Dusty, truer words have never been spoken. I agree with that wholeheartedly. So Mullet says, what about Ryan? I talked to Ryan today. Ryan's going to be joining us again on the channel this year. He's got his own channel, West Coast Bias, and I'm happy for him, and I told him I would help him grow it, but he'll be appearing on this channel again, and we love Rye. And, you know, here's my thing. I gather friends in life. I don't ever get rid of them. So if I'm your friend, I'm your friend for life. And Ryan, that includes you whenever you want to unblock me and welcome me back. David says, Larry went on a block spree when he got triggered with Ryan. You know what? I told my kid, unblock everybody. So anybody that I blocked, I've unblocked. Vicky says, thank you, Larry. Fun to receive a video from you. Thank you, Vicky, for supporting the channel. Dusty Gold says, rock Larry's merch at the Niner games. That would be cool. MF says, I like the video with Middlecoff and Haberman. I did too. I really like those guys. Those guys do an incredible job. They really do. And I competed against them on the radio, and, you know, what can I say? They were competitors then, but they're friends now. And, I thought that was an incredible segment, and I'd love to have those guys back. And if we can do a regular thing with them, man, that would be awesome. Elias22 says, I think he meant Hensley, but Ryan Smith is awesome too. I got no problem with Ryan. Ryan's the one who blocked me. I didn't block him. Randall says, love Larry's one-on-one interviews with the players. Thank you for the insight. So anyway, guys, hey, thanks to all of you. Tune in after the Giants and the Padres for a little baseball commentary. If you haven't seen Ned Coletti, he's phenomenal, and he's a really good friend, and he's got a great perspective. We'll talk a little baseball for now, and then we'll talk a little Warriors for an hour. Until then, peace.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Careful, you gon' get exactly what you asked for. Here for whatever you bring me, get it.